Well, good morning, everybody, all of our retail members and friends. We welcome you to, geez, Kylie, what is this now? Our eighth,
Eighth, I think we're now like hit the 2 month mark.
our eighth coronavirus briefing. So, unfortunately, our lobbyists are not available to join us on this call this week, but they have provided me with some updates that I'm going to share with you guys. We're also joined with our own Jenny Crittenden, Gloucester Main Street Preservation Trust, who has been appointed to be on the Governor's Business Task Force. The task force will provide advice and guidance to the cabinet on a safe, responsible strategy for easing restrictions on business and individuals as it relates to open Virginia. Once again, this week we're joined by Misty Lineberger of Pixel Financial Group and Tara Jones from Fulton Bank. Thank you both, Misty and Tara, for joining us today. They're going to be providing financial relief program information and updates for all of our small businesses.
Can I just interrupt? Sorry, 1 second, Ray. Joey, can you change the screen share? Thank you.
We're also going to be joined by Kylie Seibert, our Vice President of Corporate Communications, and she's going to be providing everybody with upcoming updates, webinar topics, and other resources. Kylie will also be reviewing our own Reopen 757 initiative, which is really a parallel opening strategy that coordinates with Reopen Virginia, as well as the National Retail Federation initiative, which is Operation Open Door. With that, I'm going to go ahead and begin with the legislative update. This is provided by Jody Roth, as well as Kate Baker, our chief lobbyist. The big thing, I mean, there's not any new news out there other than that today at 2 o'clock, the governor will be having a press conference, and we think that he will be announcing the first phase of reopening during that news conference. So we strongly encourage all of our members and retailers that if they can, be on the lookout for the update from the VRF, the Virginia Retail Federation, on phase 1 and what those guidelines look like. And then I'd like to also share with you that Retail Alliance has masks. Kylie's going to go over this again. They're labeled Reopen 757. We are able to get a bulk quantity of masks from the state. Our boots on the ground and Tina Knight, Beth Cook, Lisa Renee Jennings, Teresa, they're all distributing these to our members and non-members alike, our small mom and pops, because this can be a critical benefit for our members as we move into the reopening stages. With that, I'd like to call on Jenny Crittenden, who again is with the Governor's Task Force, looking at the guidelines for reopening. Jenny, do you have any updates for us?
I don't have any major updates other than, as Jody relayed to you, the 2 o'clock press conference today. We're all hoping that we will move into phase 1 in a week from today. However, at the last press conference, Governor Northam did leave himself an out to not do this in a week. So we're all keeping our fingers crossed. It was relayed to me that not all business sectors will open in phase 1. So, there's 6 different ones between, fitness centers, personal services like salons, campgrounds, public amusement, brick and mortar retail, food and beverage establishments. I think the majority of them will be in phase 1. And then phase 1's guidelines will, certainly, as the governor outlined on Wednesday, will be keeping the social distancing in place. And then hopefully for some of these larger establishments, so think if you have a fitness center that might be 5,000 square feet, that as long as they can maintain 6 foot of social distancing and have the ability to have an employee that is designated for disinfection after use of equipment and not exceed 50% of their occupancy, I'm hoping that's what will be included in phase 1. The guidelines that we worked on, we know were phase 1 and phase 2, so I have yet to even see what exactly will be in phase 1. However, we're supposed to see it before it hits the press, so I keep checking my email to see if it's been out yet, but I have not yet received it. So I wish I had more to tell you, but that's really about it until we watch the press conference today.
So Jenny, we're looking at, we have 2 executive orders that the governor has enacted, and Executive Order 53 is the one that really outlines essential versus non-essential retailers. And of course, Executive Order 55 is the actual stay-at-home order. I don't believe that the stay-at-home order, I don't know if it will be lifted. Will both orders be lifted, or will it only be Executive Order 53?
What I have heard has basically been Executive Order 53 that was extended for this 1 week, and then there was going to be more of a messaging of not stay at home, but safer at home.
Right.
So it's encouraging those that, you know, still would have some underlying issues or potentially, you know, get the coronavirus a little bit easier than somebody who's healthy to still stay at home, but they're saying safer at home, because that was one of the things we talked about on the task force, was the problem of the mixed messaging of, hey, we're open, but stay at home.
Right.
And so what we have really asked from the administration is that, you know, if we're going to open, which hopefully that's the case, and we need to, then we also need to send the message that we have put in place guidelines that the businesses can follow, so that for those who do decide to come out, you'll be fine. And then for those that are at risk more than some others, they're safer at home. And certainly there has been the encouragement that if you have started curbside pickup or delivery or online sales, those kinds of things, that you will not stop those. Like, those practices will continue. So we're not going to just flip the lights on and everybody's back to normal. He's looking to phase this in 3 different phases.
It seems like a little contradiction in a sense between Executive Order 53 and 55. I'm sure that will clarify today. The other thing I think a lot of our participants would like to hear, and maybe what your feel is, when we get to the non-essential businesses, you're looking at differences between a clothing store, which has got suits and alterations, and it's hard to have distancing in that type of an environment. A customer tries on a pair of slacks, the tailor comes out to do the measurement. I mean, how is that going to happen? You look at a jewelry store, or you're looking at a restaurant, which, obviously customers are not going to be able to eat their food wearing masks. Do you have a sense that the guidelines are going to be different for each of the different types of retail industries, if that makes sense?
No, it does. And so there is definitely more of a general sense of guidelines that falls under brick and mortar. It's not until you split up the sectors, you get like into personal care or the fitness centers or public amusement, that each sector has its own set of guidelines. Now, there's also a general guideline. So think if you're in an office setting, your cubicles need to be 6 feet apart. But for restaurants, and actually for all of the sectors, there's going to be the requirement of employees must wear masks if you are interfacing with the public. Now, if you're somebody in the very back and you're packaging things and you don't see the public, it's not going to actually be a requirement. It would be a best practice. So the guidelines are split out into requirements, best practices, which would be a little additional but not required. And then there's even some additional measures if people could take them. But what I would hone in on initially when you see these to reopen is to look at what is required. That will most likely be certain disinfection practices. If you're a brick and mortar retail, you can expect to clean your hard surfaces that are utilized a lot. So think your cash register area. Every 2 hours, that needs to be wiped down. In terms of masks for your employees, they will not have to require masks of the public, but certainly you could encourage it. There will be signage requirements that need to be posted at your entrances, basically saying, if you have any COVID-19 symptoms or you've been around anyone that has COVID in the last 14 days, you may not enter the establishment. And then just reminders of social distancing at 6 feet. You know, we're glad to see you, but please abide by that, where we would encourage you to wear a mask and help us keep our community safe. So that's somewhat of the general messaging that you'll see. In regards to if I have a high-end apparel store and I'm measuring people and so forth, as far as I'm concerned, you're a brick and mortar store. And if you're wearing a mask and your customer is willing to be measured, I would make sure they're wearing a mask. You could certainly have gloves on, and you could quickly measure and then back away. That's just my opinion. It is not specifically addressed, so I think they're going to count on business owners to just use their best judgment as well.
When you talk about the many sectors, how many sectors are you looking at?
There are, I believe, 6, because we added one. So let's see here. We've got restaurant and beverage, which the restaurant and beverage is going to include restaurants, dining establishments, food courts, breweries, cideries, think food trucks, distilleries, wineries, and tasting rooms. They're all under that one. You have brick and mortar retail, which is basically all brick and mortar retail establishments. You have fitness and exercise facilities, so recreation centers and gyms and indoor sports facilities, indoor exercise facilities, indoor pools and outdoor pools. You've got personal care and personal grooming, so beauty salons, barbershops, spas, massage centers, tanning salons, tattoo shops, and any other location where personal care or personal grooming services are performed. Entertainment and public amusement. So that's your theaters, your performing arts centers, concert venues, racetracks and museums, bowling alleys, skating rinks, arcades, amusement parks, and it goes on and on. And then the last one they did add was campgrounds and summer camps as a separate one. So basically, that's the 6 sectors that they've broke this out into.
I think that would be very important, especially from our communications team, to get out to our membership, defining what those 6 sectors are, why it's important. Are there going to be different guidelines in each one of these sectors, do you believe? Is that your feel?
Yes, there is a set of guidelines under each sector, and then there is a set of general guidelines that crosses all sectors. Okay.
And that's something I think that's important to get out to our members as well. Okay, I think our chairwoman of the board, Pam Catranza, would like to make a comment. Pam?
Okay, there we go. I just wanted to pass this on because said, some of you may know this, but I am located in 2 different shopping malls in the Hampton Roads area, Pembroke and MacArthur. I received information from both of them yesterday about reopening, and they are different. Pembroke is ready to open on the 15th if that does come to pass. MacArthur Center is going to wait an additional week and also has said you don't even have to open until the 25th of May, but they want everyone open by the 25th if things are going along. But I think what's also interesting is Pembroke asked me what I was going to do so they could publish it in terms of, am I requiring masks and so on, and am I going to take cash? Where MacArthur Center, gave out an excellent set of guidelines. I thought the guidelines that the National Retail Federation gave us to look at, to adopt or use to make our own policies and procedures were good. The MacArthur centers are even better. They're almost written for you. And I can pass those on if anyone wants to see this. I'm sure Jim wouldn't mind. But the fact that I'm trying to point out is it is going to be very different, even within one sector, how we operate. And in some cases, I would think businesses may have to adjust the way they've been doing business, even in how they handle taking a transaction. So I'm looking at all of that. Thank you for coming up with masks for us. I'm looking for industrial hand sanitizer to have at my front doors, looking for plexiglass to put at my cash registers. So I think we have a short time if we're going to open on the 15th to really get ready. But just having that experience of 2 different locations less than 10 miles away from each other and having completely different guidelines, I thought was interesting, and I wanted to share that.
Thank you, Pam. Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding Jenny's report?
Hey, Ray, this is Jenny again.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure if Scotty Signs is a member of Retail Alliance or not, but I did receive a catalog from them in relationship to the plexiglass barriers, and they're making several of those. So that might potentially be a resource. So just putting that out there, because I did see that.
Okay, that's good to know. Anything else?
What business was he with?
Scotty Signs?
Scotty.
Yes,
Scotty Signs. And I
yes,
also
Scotty Signs
understand-
of Newport News.
And I also know that G&W Gifts are also making plexiglass as well. They are one of Retail Alliance's members. They're located on Poplar Hall Drive, near Military Circle. Are there any other questions or comments for Jenny? Pam?
Nothing more right now. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for that update. It's very good to have one of our own on the governor's task force. It gives us a little inside information as far as so that we can get ahead of the game, so to speak. And great observations, Pam. Thank you for joining us as well. So now let's hand it off to Misty Lineberger and Tara Jones, and they can talk us through the PPP loans, the EIDL loans, as well as the payroll credits. Some of this might be redundant to some of you. We have some new participants online today, so some of this information is new to them. So I think we'll first call on Misty. Misty.
Good morning, everybody. So just a heads up, we are actually going to start opening our office up again next week. I don't think we'll be open until the following week. We have chosen to have our office fogged with a non-toxic but germ-killing fog. And if anybody's interested in that, let me know, because I have a great contact for that, but just wanted to put that out there really quick. So lots of stuff happening right now. Focus is starting to shift. Clearly, PPPs are getting funded. People are starting to see the EIDLs roll in. So now things are starting to shift, and I think we're going to start getting more guidance on the tax credits that are going to be rolling out. The 2 major ones would be the employee retention credit. Now, if you already have a PPP, you're not going to be able to take advantage of that. But this is for any size company. It doesn't matter if you're big or small, that for some reason couldn't get the PPP, or you don't qualify for the PPP, and your income drops by more than 50% of the same income level at the same period of time last year. So if that's the case, you're going to be able to qualify for the employee retention credit, which is 50% of qualified payroll up to $10,000. So for large companies, that might not be a whole lot, but for our smaller companies, that can make a big difference. There's a very specific date range, March 30th through December 30th, I believe. I'll have to get the end date, but it's a very specific time frame in which the qualifying payroll lies. And then the other credit is COVID-19 qualified leave as discussed under the FMLA provisions for COVID-19. So as of April 1st, if you had employees take leave because they either had COVID-19, were caring for somebody with COVID-19, or had been quarantined by a professional for one reason or another because of COVID-19, or they had to care for a dependent of which they are the primary caregiver because their facility was no longer open as a result of everything that was going on, then there is paid leave that employers are going to be able to pay in addition to their normal paid leave policies, in which they will receive a 100% reimbursement in the form of tax credits. And it's been a little unclear on how we're going to be able to take advantage of some of these tax credits. But again, more and more guidance is starting to come out. So I'm going to start untangling that now that we've gotten kind of past the PPP IDL situation. So in terms of the PPP, for those of you who weren't here last week, the big bomb that was dropped on me Thursday night, and I say me because it hit my email from the IRS, but for pretty much everybody, is that if you receive the PPP and it is forgiven, the expenses on which you spend that money will not be considered tax deductible. And here's what really happened there. Congress, when they passed the CARES Act, didn't even think of it, or they did and then chose not to do anything about it. But everybody was started asking questions because as a CPA, when you receive that kind of income, there are certain expenses associated with it that are not deductible. So CPAs and other people in our industry started asking questions, and the IRS says, well, this is what regulation says. And it's just a general regulation. It's not specific to COVID or the pandemic in any way, shape, or form. So because they have no guidance from Congress, they went back to what regulation says and says, for now, this is the way it is, unless Congress changes something. I believe something will get changed. I believe it's going to wind up in the court systems. That's just my opinion. I think there's going to be a collective howl. I know the mama bear in me came out when I read that, and it actually took me an entire day to calm myself down before I could do a video on that. So, but it's something to be aware of and something that you need to be working with your tax preparers and accountants and CPAs to plan for now. Because essentially what that means is, while the forgiveness of the PPP itself is not taxable, meaning you do not have to declare it as income on your tax return, it essentially increases your bottom line by not being able to take those expenses as a tax deductible expense. So in our company, in our firm, we're already making those changes on people's P&L reports so that we can track everything that is being spent with the PPP money as a separate and complete line item. Again, I'm hoping it's going to change, but we have to plan for when it doesn't. It's also another reason keeping those PPP funds in a totally separate bank account is now more essential than ever. So if you're not doing that, I highly recommend that you do that right away. I'm also saying, let's go ahead and just spend that money on payroll. They're saying up to 25% of that can be used on non-payroll qualifying expenses. But at this point in time, I'm kind of not trusting the system, but we know for a fact that if you spend 100% of that on payroll, up to June 30th, 8 weeks from when you receive the money up to June 30th, it's going to be a forgivable expense. So there's just a lot of nuances and caveats to that you need to be sitting down to include the FTEs, sorry, I'm having a hard time thinking of my, but it's basically your full-time equivalents. There we go. Your full-time equivalent employees. We have gone through each and every one of our clients who has received the PPP, and we've calculated those numbers for them so that we can determine what adjustments need to be made, because it is something that needs to be fixed, but it needs to be fixed right now. There are a lot of questions going on about, well, what if I have an employee that refused to come back? Well, you can hire another employee in their place. You don't have to have the same employees. You just have to have the same level in terms of numbers of employees. So just something to keep in mind there. Now, I know from my end, because the PPPs and the EIDLs, people are getting their money on that, our focus is pretty much shifting on what needs to be spent first, what kinds of expenses we should work on deferring versus what we should be paying right now. So that's something that you're going to need to be looking at. And right now, you guys need to spend that PPP money first. It needs to be done by June 30th. There's some question as to whether or not it's 8 weeks from when you receive it past June 1st. But what I'm telling everybody right now is if you don't have 8 weeks between when you are funded and June 30th, I'm sorry, I said first, but I meant June 30th, then we can apply those things retroactively to some expenses prior, just to not even play the game or take the chances, just because it's a really unclear gray area as it is with a lot of the stuff going on right now. So lots of different stuff going on, but the focus is definitely shifting. And like I said, I think we're going to be getting a lot more guidance on the payroll tax credits that employers are going to be able to take advantage of.
So, Misty, if I understand you correctly, and we use hypothetics as an example. So if you had received $50,000 in PPP loans for payroll, 75% of that $50,000 must be used between the date that you apply.
100% of it needs to be used from the time that you were funded and 8 weeks after up to June 30th. That's what the language says.
So that is the date that you were funded, not the date that the program opened.
Correct. However, what the expenses that the payroll, the PPP can cover include retroactively. So you can go all the way back and cover expenses from February 15th. So for example,
Okay.
I have, there's somebody who's going to be getting funded next week. Clearly they don't have 8 weeks. And they're like, well, how do we do that? Because we're trying to maximize the forgivability of the PPP. And what we're doing is they had actually taken money out of their pocket in order to pay payroll a couple of weeks prior. So we're actually going to reimburse the owner for that payroll in very specific amounts and documented. Like, I cannot tell you guys how important it's going to be to document everything so that he meets the compliance of having it spent by June 30th. So it can be used retroactively for expenses from February 15th through June 30th.
Okay. I think Phil, you have a couple questions as well regarding the PPP.
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I received the PPP on April 21st, and I still haven't opened my stores and have not paid my employees. We are opening our Fayetteville store, so now we have 3 weeks that we haven't used the PPP loan. And when we open Virginia, that's going to be 4 weeks that we haven't used the PPP loan. I have paid my rents and I paid the utilities up to the 25% of the PPP loan. It doesn't appear like I'm going to be able to use the full 75% of the PPP loan. So it looks like I'll probably use for payroll. It probably would be about, let's say 55 to 60%. Does that mean that I don't get forgiveness on the rent portion because I haven't used all the payroll portion?
I'm not sure about whether they're going to split it by rent versus payroll. What they're going to say is you only used X percentage of the loan for expenses, and you left, let's say you left 20% unspent. That 20% is not going to be forgivable, because what the government expected you to do the minute you received that PPP loan, and this is an important point that everybody needs to hear, is they expected you to call your employees and put them back on payroll, regardless of whether the store was open or your facility was open or not. So because the PPP loan covers paid leave. So that was ultimately what the expectation was for that. So just an FYI, if anybody else finds themselves in that situation, you want to call your employees immediately and get them back on payroll, even if you don't have something for them to do at that particular moment in time. Now, I know a lot of conversations I'm having with people are, well, employees are at home collecting unemployment and they don't really want to give that up at this moment because it's actually more than what I can offer them on payroll. Doesn't matter. They have to go back on payroll, and if they choose not to, 2 things are going to happen. 1, they can be terminated, and of course, I don't want you to do that without first coming from a place of understanding and compassion. That's really important, because some people are legitimately scared of it, but if they choose not to go back on payroll, even though you're paying them to do nothing, you can terminate them and you can hire somebody else in their place. And 2, they need to be reported to the BEC because they no longer qualify for that unemployment because they chose not to go back on payroll for invalid reasons. So as much as I want to be as understanding for our employees as possible, believe me, I'm an employer, I absolutely understand. The PPP loan has some very specific things, and one of them is the minute you got it, you need to put everybody back on payroll and get them off of the unemployment system. So, but Phil, we can take that money and we can apply it retroactively, potentially to some things starting back from February 15th. So that's probably something you and I have some questions for you. We probably want to talk offline about that, but in general terms, if you receive the PPP, but yet you're not open, still put them on payroll so that we don't have the problem that Phil is currently experiencing.
Okay, just for clarification again. So if I spent 60% on the total PPP, then I would be, that would be forgiven.
The 60% would be forgiven. The additional 40% would have to be paid off over 2 years at 1% interest, providing that they agreed with the expenses that you spent the 60% on.
Yes. Okay. So if I carved out 25%, which I did for rent and utilities, and then the rest of the payroll, which is also part of payroll, is
Right.
your insurance and the dental, I guess would qualify for health insurance.
Mhm.
And if I use that and then 40% I haven't used, I would have to pay back, which is not an issue. I was
Right.
afraid that I wouldn't be forgiven on the whole loan.
Now, the thing is, no, it'll just be partially
Okay.
forgiven. I think the thing that we need to worry about there is, one, if you have extra PPP money left over at the end, I mean, you're going to have to pay it off. So you may just want to give it back, number one.
Yes.
But number two is, now are they going to look at your PP loan as just simply the total of the amount you actually spent? And then does that throw your percentages off in terms of 25, 75? And I don't have an answer for you on that one. I'm not sure how they're going to handle that problem, which is why it's imperative that we spend all of this money, because I just don't know how they're going to treat it after the fact. Like, are they going to look at that and only look, oh, well, he only used 60% of that loan, so that's where our percentage base starts. And now suddenly you've spent 40% on non-payroll related expenses and 60%. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's the only risk I think that's being run there. And that, of course, would reduce the forgivability even further if that's the route they go. But we have no guidance on that at all.
Correct. Okay, I appreciate it. That answered a lot of my questions. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Misty. And now I'd like to call on Tara Jones with Fulton Bank. She may be able to give us, well, I hope she can give us an update on the PPP loan processing through the bank, and there might be some clarifications or comments that she'd like to make regarding this topic. Tara?
Good morning, everyone. Definitely the PP process has slowed down tremendously. I think that the majority of business owners that was going to take advantage of the opportunity has already done so. So a lot of individuals are mostly completely funded, especially from our end. And the individuals that we are funding now are individuals who are just coming and making that decision here at the last minute to go ahead and take care of the funds. Like many of us bankers, we are referring a lot of people to their CPA and to their accountant, because we have individuals like Misty who are extremely knowledgeable and can definitely assist them in what they need to do with those funds. We do get a lot of questions very similar to what Misty just answered about what individuals need to do, especially if they're not able to use all the funds, if their stores are not open, what can we do? And I try to answer that the best I can. I'm glad to hear Misty's explanation, because that means that I'm not misguiding anybody. So I'm on the same page as she is. One of the things I wanted to mention was in one of the frequently asked questions that the SBA put out. We get notification of those probably weekly. Our SBA department sends it down, and it's along the lines of what y'all were mentioning before. And the question that was put out was, will a borrower's PPP loan forgiveness amount be reduced if the borrower laid off an employee, offered to rehire the same employee, but that employee declined the offer? And the answer that the SBA is giving is no. The SBA intends to issue an interim final rule excluding laid off employees whom the borrower offered to rehire, of course, for the same wage, salary, and same number of hours from the CARES Act loan forgiveness reduction calculation. That interim final rule will specify that to qualify for this exception, the borrower must have a good faith written offer of rehire, and the employee's rejection of that offer must be documented by the borrower. And of course, employees and employers should be aware that if an employee rejects the offer of reemployment, they would be forfeiting eligibility for continued unemployment compensation. So that is one of the questions that was added to the frequently asked packet that we get. And definitely the packet is very readily available for individuals that may want to take a look at it. Has information on there that some of it pertains mostly to maybe how the bank is handling PP distribution, but it also takes in consideration questions that individuals and professionals like ourselves may get from customers or individuals who have, you know, issues or about the forgiveness piece. But like Misty said, we still are waiting for actual specific guidelines from the SBA. We have not received any. I think that we do get a lot of those calls because it's still being put onto the banking institutions that we're the ones who's controlling it. But we're not. We're still waiting for that guidance to come down for us to be able to implement it with our customers. But the biggest encouragement that we're giving is that they are definitely tracking expenses, tracking what the funds are used for, definitely keeping the funds in a separate account, making this as clean as possible so that when the time does come, it makes it possible for those funds to be forgiven. And again, working with their CPA in the different scenarios that they may have, in essence, for them to be able to take full advantage of the funds that they do have and limit the amount of debt that's left on them in the end.
Thank you, Tara. I think we have a question from Ginger Spencer. I think she wanted to have something restated. Ginger, do you mind unmuting your phone and asking the question that you're referring to?
Sure, no problem. I've seen that my banker sent that same information over talking about if the employee refuses the rehirement. So it just, oops, sorry, my phone just disconnected. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess I just don't understand it and wondered if you could explain that better in lay terms as far as the
well, I think that the bottom line really comes from a documentation standpoint. If you have an employee who you're willing to bring back, you're giving them the same wages, the same salary, the same hours, regardless of whether you're opening or whether you're closed, but that employee still does not want to come back to your payroll, then if you make sure that you document the offer, document the decline, I think that would be your safety net with regards to if something were to come up or if you had to explain why you weren't able to bring the individual or those individuals fully back on. And when more of those guidelines come out of how that documentation is going to look like, you'll be prepared to be able to present that, you know, with the remaining documents that you have.
And this is regarding how much is going to be forgiven. Is that right?
Yes.
Ray, can I say something?
Sure.
In regards, I was told that you should send a letter to every employee that you're opening and that they have to come back to work as part of a documentation. We also documented where we were given an extra bonus or pay for them to come back because we had the extra money based on the average. And we put that in the letter also to the employees for their return back to work.
I think that's an outstanding, definitely an outstanding suggestion and a great idea, you know, that you do that you do document, you know, what your plans are, what you're doing with each employee, sending them a letter about what you're going to do. I think that's an outstanding way of handling it.
And Pamela had a similar question in terms of increasing the pay rate temporarily for employees who are working. And I actually fully support that, primarily because the people who are continuing to work through this, a lot of employers are paying with them something called hazard pay, you know, because they are still working, they are still exposing themselves and taking a risk, while others have chosen not to do that and maybe getting, you know, paid to stay at home. So the answer is yes, you can increase it. I would call it hazard pay or something to those lines in terms of dealing with the PPP, as well as just an incentive for the employees as well.
If we could address the idle loans, are they still being funded? And that's either to Tara or Misty.
I am not aware that they are not being funded. I know that I have received a lot of information from people that they've received the grant portion of it. So there's been a lot of deposits. It just happened. They didn't receive emails, but I don't know anybody who's actually signed the loan documents yet. Now, I'm just logically kind of using logic to backdoor my way into this, but in terms of the actual loan itself, it's supposed to take up to 21 days to process the EIDL loan. In terms of, that's what the SBA has told us, they have up to 21 days. So if you receive the grant, that's when they started processing your loan. So I'm guessing it's going to be another 3 weeks or so before you actually see anything about the actual loan documents themselves. But I have yet to talk to anyone who's actually gotten to that point, just to the point where they received the grant.
Can I chime in?
And I'm in the same boat with Misty. I have not spoken to anyone who's actually closed an idle loan. Like she said, you know, we have lots of people who have had the grant money that's actually been deposited into the account, but that's to the extent of it. The information that, you know, our SBA department gave us about the idle, I think is very similar to what Misty said in the last, I think last week's conversation, that if you had like a loan number that began with the number 3, that you were in queue, and that, you know, to be patient, you know, with the SBA. But, you know, if you have any kind of further questions or need understanding, you know, to call that customer service line. I do plan on reaching out in the next day or two to one of my customers who's actually a CPA, who applied for the idle, and he applied pretty early. So out of curiosity, I'm going to give him a call just to see where he was at, because the last time him and I spoke, he had actually provided documents to prove how much money he was looking to get. So I hadn't heard from him by the end of April that he had signed anything, but I'm going to give him a call, and maybe hopefully at the next update, if I've been able to reach out and get in touch with him, I'll be able to let you know. But again, I haven't known anyone that has signed any kind of paperwork as of yet.
Yeah, and I actually applied for the process myself with no intention of taking the money. I just wanted to see how the process would go, and I haven't heard a thing. And I applied very, very early on, so I would be very interested in how it's going for that individual. So,
Phil, did you have a comment?
Yes, I just read an article on LinkedIn this morning about the idle loan, and I did receive the grant, and what they're saying is the funds are going to go out to the farmers first now, and that they can be reducing the amount that businesses can get to 150,000. So I'm not sure if that's true or not. I just read that article this morning. Now I did get the grant. I am in the 3 series, so I just don't know what amount and if that's true or not now.
Any comments? Have you heard anything like that, Tara or Misty?
no.
I have not.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Tara. When should our businesses who have been awarded the PPP loan, when should they begin applying for the forgiveness, and what is that process?
As of right now, we aren't in that mode with accepting information with regards to forgiveness, because we haven't received any kind of guidance from the SBA around it. So we are at a standstill. And as of right now, institutions are doing disbursements of the PPP, but that's all that we're doing at this moment.
Okay. I mean, on a just an educated guess, obviously it's got to be after the June 30th deadline, I would imagine.
Right.
So probably in mid to latter part of the summer, would that be a good guess? It is.
Well, we're hoping that they will do it way before then. You know, I would hope that as things are winding down and less money is being dispersed from that particular program, that they would be working towards shaping the guidance around it. So I would only hope that it would be something that would be done way before the time period that they've given for those funds to be used, just so that they can be able to provide better guidance to business owners as they're using the money in that process.
Okay. I tell you, we are so fortunate to have experts like this to be able to join us on this call, from Jenny Crittenton to our chief lobbyist, Misty, Tara. I mean, we just can't thank you enough to help us guide through this process, because these guys, they're worried, and you know they're juggling a lot of balls, and understanding this process can be overwhelming. So really appreciate you, really do. Joey, do we have any other questions or comments for either Misty, Tara, or in this case, Jenny?
I can't really see that right now. Kylie, do we have any questions?
Did we answer the one from Pam?
Yes.
Okay. Then yeah, I think that has answered everyone's.
Well, I want to wish you guys happy Mother's Day. I hope you stay on the call for its entirety. We love to have you here. So with that, I'm going to now hand it off to our own Kylie Seibert, our Vice President of Corporate Communications, to give us updates, as well as our new initiative going into the next phase of reopening not only Virginia, but in particular, Kylie, reopening 757.
That's right.
So I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Good morning, everyone. Well, next week is our last retail relief webinar. This will be our 13th webinar that we've put on, especially during this pandemic, to help all of our small businesses try and educate themselves and get through crisis. So next week is teaching that one about helping sort of relieve that workday stress. As we all know, just trying to get our businesses through this is been a very stressful time. So Rebecca Runners-Crystal is going to join us. She's a life and business coach. So put some of the details up on the screen for that, but please register on our website. And if you receive our emails, you'll also receive a link through there too. So that will be next Tuesday morning. Joey, can you move on to the next slide, if you don't mind? All right, so last week I did share for the first time, and I've just put them up here again. These are the topics that we have covered. If you weren't able to join us live at the time, they're all stored on our Retail Alliance YouTube channel. So if there's anything there, including any of these briefings, they're also recorded there as well. Please take a look back at that, because some of those topics are really going to help you, whether it was trying to set up an online store, whether it's like working out your inventory, trying to get rid of it, you know, for the next season and to reopen. We had some of our fellow members and panelists join us to share their stories and what they've been doing. We talked about video marketing. So there's so many different topics there that, you know, if you do have some time, please take a look at those. All right,
Kylie,
yes.
You're kind of breaking up. I want to just pause for a second to make sure that nobody has any questions about that. I ask that everybody please mute their mic in the event that that's contributing to the static. But if you could just repeat what you just mentioned.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention just a few that pointed out to me that would really help businesses get through this, in terms of social media, getting some more knowledge about video that Cheryl Tan did for us, video marketing, looking at the employment issues that, again, have been brought up today on the call, with re-employment of people, managing cash flow, that's such a big thing. We had our panelists on here from our board that we joined us to share their stories of fellow members. It's really important to hear from them, just to share, some ways that they've been getting through it. So please take a look back if you have time on our recordings that are on our YouTube channel. Just search for Retail Alliance on YouTube and it will have all of these on there, as well as the recordings of our Friday briefings as well. Okay, I think everyone's had a chance to look at this slide. We might move to the next one. Thank you. So as Ray pointed out at the beginning of this, we do have some masks that are to be distributed to retailers, restaurants, anyone really that has going to be customer facing. So we're trying to get it all out to people, before they reopen. So please, for now, we're sort of doing a max of 25, but if you do have multiple stores, we will see what we can do. And if we have some left over after this first round, we will distribute more as we can go along. But before I go too much into that, we are at the point now where businesses really do need to plan to reopen. We've tried to give them as much information as possible from the government, from all of our webinars, but now it's like, let's look at strategies to reopen your business, whether it's from security to logistics to inventory, anything that will help you. So we've called this initiative Reopen 757. So we're bandwagoning on the marketing term 757, but we all know 757 also includes Gloucester. It also includes, telephone numbers that aren't just 757. So please don't think that that is limited. So we're going to actually be changing the format of our webinars, our retail relief, from, we were doing Tuesdays and Thursdays every week now for 2 months. We're going to instead, on a Friday with these briefings, invite a guest just to talk for 10, 15 minutes about one particular topic that will help you reopen your store. So we'll have experts like we've had with Misty and Tara and Jenny, just to help us provide some guidance. So starting next Friday, we will have a guest join us. But in the meantime, Joe, if you can go to the next slide for me for a second. I wanted to also point out some of the other things that you can take advantage of that we have provided. So make sure you are in touch with our website portal. All the latest information is on there. Anything from the government, any of our webinars, any information we've got from the NRF, which is the National Retail Federation, with guidelines. We also have our emails that go out. If you aren't on our email list, please make sure you go and sign up on our website. And also with that, make sure you go into your spam and whitelist us. Just add that email address to your address book so it does not go into spam. And member relations advisors are also sending out information as well and making sure all our members are all right and contacting them. And as you reopen, they will get out there to see you as well. You also may see them as you want to get some masks in the next week. So our Strive Workshop webinars, we'll be going back to our regular format, which was a monthly webinar on various topics. We will be revising those for the remainder of the year because we have moved up a few of them, already done them. So we will release a new schedule for those. As I've said, like the retail relief webinars was something we did. The membership dues relief plan, we never really focused much on it, but I know it was something that we implemented just fairly quietly, just to really make sure that our member knew that we know their pain. So we've delayed any payment for any memberships for 4 months, just to make sure, that's not even on their radar that they have to worry about their membership with us. Retailers podcasts is something that we've been doing. Joey and I interview our members and other experts just to really have more of an in-depth chat, one-on-one. And so we just released our latest one with Brenda. When we just did one with Laurie Yunker from Once Upon a Child in Newport News and Closed Mentor. So they will be continuing. If you do want to be interviewed by us, just contact your member relations person. Retail think tanks, Ray, you might want to briefly mention something about these.
Yes, the retail think tanks, we've held two of them. We hold those on a quarterly basis. It's 8 to 10 or 8 to 12 folks. You got to be an owner. You got to be an owner or a partner. It's a confidential session, workshop, so to speak. What we do is review challenges. We had our Peninsula Retail Think Tank this past Wednesday. We had the Southside Retail Think Tank last week. It was facilitated by Cheryl Tan. Obviously, the biggest challenge a lot of our businesses are running into is how to reopen or how to sell their products virtually. And so those were some of the things that we were talking about. A lot of the main focus was on how to create videos that could be used to highlight a business or its products. Our next retail think tanks will begin in August. If you are interested in becoming a member, we do have some of our participants today that are members of the retail think tank. Please reach out to either Beth Cook or Tina, and they will help guide you through that process.
Okay. And we've always been and continue to be the voice of retail up at the General Assembly and with our legislators. So I want to make sure, through Jody and through Kate, that we have the best representation possible on behalf of our retailers. So that will continue. And also now with Jenny being on the business task force, representing Main Street and small businesses really does help too. So we've got that representation. Now the reopened 757 masks are available. Beth Cook on the Peninsula has set up each day there will be a different location. She has already communicated this to her members, but we will also post it on our portal, on our website, where those locations and times will be. So this is not just for our members. Please know that we have been tasked by the government to provide these masks to the retail industry. So these are available. If you know fellow business owners that need them, please reach out. These masks on the south side. Sorry, Ray.
No, if I could just go. You finished. I just want to just talk a little bit about them.
So I just want to say Tina is also out delivering them to our members on the south side. So please, and also if you do need any, just contact one of those people, Tina or Beth, or any staff member, and we can arrange delivery or pickup through our Norfolk office.
So the pickup at the Norfolk office will be between 8 and 12. Just call in advance so we can make sure that you have them. You want to give us the number of staff. They come in packets of 5. They are cloth and they are washable, so they can be used multiple times. They're not intended for customers. They are intended for your staff during the reopening phase.
Mm-hmm. As far as I know, I think it is 12 times they can be washed. And we do have quite a large number of them. So we're hoping that we can make sure that, as many people as possible get their hands on them. And the last one I just wanted to mention is we have, and I know it's an overused word, but pivoted our CROPS program, the Certificate in Retail Operations. And it's something that really helps people just, operate their business better. And there is 7 pillars to that, which are all on our website, but just wanted to mention that it is going online. Starts June 1st. The South Side and Peninsula will be a combined cohort facilitated by both Maryland Grieve and Tracy Powers, both very successful business owners themselves and highly experienced with the education component of this. So, and they will be sharing their knowledge and helping facilitate these groups. So if you do need financial help as well, there is scholarships available. Being a member of Retail Alliance does provide a great benefit to being part of it because it is led by our foundation, which is a 501c3. So we are able to help financially in that regard. Ray, is there anything you want to add on that?
Well, I just want to say that we had a meeting with our facilitators. Mary is on the phone with us. I'm going to call on her in a minute because I think she has an update regarding the PPP loans. But regarding the certificate in operations, being with the pandemic, they were in class, in seats type of cohorts, right? So this current crisis, we decided to make it virtually, and both Mary and Tracy will be teaming up and will be offering it through a virtual manner. And the classes, the two cohorts are combined. Now, today, as of today, we have approximately 22 to 24 students. I want to say it's either 22 or 23. Retail Alliance, or through the foundation, is offering scholarships, 12 for the peninsula, 12 for the south side. So if you're interested and you want to send a person or a manager trainee or use it for professional development, you need to reach out to either Tina, Beth, or myself ASAP. So that's a big. I'm very excited about it because being virtual has given us an opportunity to apply for grants. There's a lot of grants out there for virtual learning, especially during these times. I think that Mary and Tracy have so much to bring to the table, and by working as a team, I expect it to be very robust and very excited about it. So we're going into our third iteration, and it continues to evolve. It's only 12 weeks, 18 weeks. And it, as Kylie mentioned, it goes over the 7 modules of behaviors necessary to be a successful retailer. It is for both existing retailers and aspiring retailers. And the exam, so to speak, is a business plan that will be given live to a panel of we refer to it as a mental bucket, but it's very similar to a Shark Tank type environment. So that is a business plan. Tara's on the line. I'm still on the line. I think that she can attest to the importance of a aspiring business to have a comprehensive business plan as when they come in and start applying for their commercial loans. So that's what I had to talk about on the crops, Kylie.
I just wanted to mention one thing, Ray, it's not a huge time commitment for those people who believe that, they're running a full-time business right now. It's 2 hours on a Monday night. That is the Zoom component online. Right. And the other parts of it is really just the homework that you want to put in to really create and develop that business plan as you go through the modules. So it's what you put in is what you're going to get out.
And there's going to be a certain amount of testing and metrics involved because we want to make sure that there are takeaways, and that's the biggest thing. I'd like to call on Mary if I may. I think she has some updated information on the PPP. And Mary, of course, if you want to touch on the crops program, please feel free to do that as well.
Hi, everybody. It is Mary. I'm not sure that I have any information on the PPP necessarily, but I do have quite a few clients that have received it and are sorting through it kind of the same way that everybody else is. There is EIDL money out there. I have heard of a few of those loans getting funded very, very recently. So I think help is on the way. The crops program, I can't speak highly enough about the thoughtfulness that goes into that program to help folks really organize their business and organize their thoughts around the best way to do business within what they're trying to do. So really geared towards business owners and managers of business. So if you know somebody that falls under that, I would strongly, strongly encourage them to get involved with this. We're going to be kicking off June 1. I think the virtual piece of it actually opens up a tremendous opportunity for more people to participate that are retail owners, because sometimes you can't get away quickly enough from your store, but you can log in and participate in that way. One last thing I wanted to mention. I just got it. Internet is unstable. Did you guys hear what I said or?
Enough.
We heard it, yeah.
Okay. So the one last thing I just wanted to share, I'm a Management One consultant. I work with retailers. I've got retailers now in 18 different states. I have quite a few clients that have reopened for business, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention the cautious nature that they're opening with, limited hours, the type of disinfecting they're doing, having their customers wear masks as well as their staff. All of those things are going on. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there seems to be quite a spike in business. So people are ready to be out and shop and spend money. That's not meant to scare anyone because it's not like an overwhelming number, but the numbers, the data that's coming in is very, very strong when it comes to sales. So all things look like they're trending in really good directions. So I would just caution everybody to be prepared.
Thank you very much, Mary. And I misread the chat. It was Misty who had the actual update on the PPP. So I'm going to call on Misty to give us the newest and the best news on that.
Yeah, seriously, it just hit my email. The IRS just clarifying more and more stuff. So I had mentioned earlier that you cannot take the employee retention credit and the PPP. So those of you who had the PPP, it just wasn't an option. Not true. If you pay the PPP back by May 14th of this month, if you decide that the employee retention credit is a better option for you, then you can pay the PPP back and use the employee retention credit as long as it is done by May 14th, which is next week. So I just wanted to make sure, given how closely it is, that I got that information to you quickly.
Hot off the press.
Yeah, hot.
So Kylie, you want to review what the availability of our briefings and our webinars?
Right, so everything is, anything that's been recorded is on our YouTube channel. Any upcoming events is on our website under upcoming events. Fridays, we're going to be holding our briefings and incorporating a reopen 757 topic based on things that were provided either by the state or by the NRF and even locally. People like Pam providing guidelines that she's had from the malls, all that sort of information we will be sharing on our Friday briefings. They won't necessarily be as long as there has been today. Sorry that we've gone a little over, but we really wanted to make sure we got the full messages out on everything. So we will be adding the 10 to 15 minutes on usually our half-hour briefing. So it will still hopefully stay within the hour next Friday morning and every Friday after that until we get through this at 9:30 a.m.
Okay. Thank you, Kylie. And thank everybody for joining us. Thank you to our subject matter experts, Misty, Tara, and Jenny Crittenton. And I would really like to wish you all a very, very happy Mother's Day.
Thanks, Ray.
And we will stay in touch and order your masks. And we'll see you again next Friday, May 15th.